So, like many artists who have spent their time focused on character art, anatomy, maybe getting spicy and throwing two characters in a composition, I am very lacking when it comes to backgrounds. One thing that I've been wanting to work on a little bit over the last few months is incorporating backgrounds and kind of deciding how I would like to do backgrounds, whether that's learning to do everything from scratch, or one thing that I've been playing around a little bit that I found mostly from what I've seen in webtoons and manhwas is the utilization of 3D models in the actual art itself. And I've seen some really cool artists be able to overpaint 3D models in a way that it really feels like it's fully incorporated into their art as well. And I think it would be really interesting to get to a point where I can do that as well. Right now, I'm not quite there. Everything still looks very 3D. But I want to talk a little bit about the main program that I have been using right now. So the program that I've been utilizing, and I believe is the common one used for things in webtoons and manhwas, is Snaptoon. I've enjoyed it a lot so far. I feel like it's very easy to use, very simple. In terms of the 3D models that I've been utilizing right now, I've been using Acon 3D. I feel like they've got a pretty decent library. They've got individual 3D models, or if you're looking for a room, or mostly what I'm looking for is kind of those bigger scenic scapes. They've got a range of historical, modern buildings, cityscapes, so I've found it very useful. I'm sure there are other areas, but I've enjoyed Acon so far, and I feel like the user license fits me since I'm an individual, so I can get a little bit more expansive use from the 3D models that I'm getting from Acon. I also like that there's usually a lot of individual items within the 3D models, and Snaptoon actually has their own account on here with their own assets. And one thing that I haven't tried out yet, but it actually works with SketchUp. So I believe you can create some pretty expansive rooms and buildings within SketchUp, and then once you have that SKP file, you can import that directly into Snaptoon. Once you pull something into Snaptoon, a lot of times everything will be grouped together, so you might have to double click or triple click depending on what you're trying to actually move around or rotate. If you're scaling something and it's a part of a group, it might get a little bit funky unless you select that center white square, which is going to be a little bit more of a balanced scale for everything. Or you can just go in and click on that one specific item that you might want to adjust individually. And I feel like Snaptoon has been pretty self-explanatory for me. I feel like there's a pretty simple set of areas that you can click into, settings that you can adjust for whatever you're looking to do, and the setup is pretty simple. I definitely would recommend having a mouse that has that third middle button, because it's going to save you so much headache moving around Snaptoon. There's also the Snaptoon warehouse. I haven't personally used it because everything's written in Korean, so I haven't really utilized the warehouse itself too much. Going into the tools here, you can make adjustments even if it's not something that you created yourself, whether that's changing the textures or changing, like, let's say I want to adjust this and make the lamp a shade blue. Adjust things like the metallic and shine of the item. And then once you're all set, you've got a nice blue lamp. Once you've got your scene set up in a way that you like and you want to export for your actual background, you can go in and they've got different camera settings, whether you want to add a little bit of field of view or aperture, add a little bit of contrast or extra saturation. They've got a decent amount of editing that you can do in the actual software itself. There's also a small selection of filtering that you can do, kind of change how those outlines are going to look, maybe add a little bit of flair with how it's colored in, give it a little bit more of like a cartoon kind of style on how it's shaded. Maybe if you want to go for something that's a little bit more dramatic, they have options there as well. Additionally, there are things like if you've got a cityscape and you want something nice and foggy and a little bit creepy, you've got different options for fog as well, distance, the color of the fog. If you want to add a little bit of blur to the image itself, you can do that, adjust how that looks motion blur wise. There's also your light bloom, which I believe is on by default, which is just that very bright, soft, glowy look to it. You also have a good selection of different types of lighting. I like to use sunlight a lot I have chosen a 3D model that has no windows, so let's just delete a wall for a second and pretend that that's just a nice, beautiful window behind me. So now let's actually take a look at what that sunlight looks like. You might just need to adjust things like direction so that it actually starts pulling in, but then you've got those beautiful kind of pulls. You can adjust the power, change a bit of the color if you want something that's, you've got a little bit of that golden hour light, or you want to go with something that's a little bit more intense. You can go for something that's a little bit more dramatic, maybe adjust some of the colors so that it's either stylized or you get that night blue kind of glowy effect. One additional item that you can find within the filters as well are actual stylized filters that you can put over the image itself if you want to go for something that's got a very stylized look to it, something that's a little bit more toned in specific colors, maybe something that's a little bit dark, a little bit noir-esque. I've enjoyed using a handful of these filters a lot. Mostly, if I'm going in here, I may be choosing something that's going to soften it up a little bit, or I really like the night version that they have on here. I feel like it's a really nice time blue. Let's go with something just kind of generally soft, a little glowy, a little warm. So once you have that, you can position it into the way that you want the camera image to actually capture. Get it a little bit closer in, set it up, and then you've got a handful of options. So with these, you can select as few or as many as you want, and then you're going to get a handful of different images, whether it's things like the specific line art, the mask. So far, I feel like I've gotten a good grasp on how I want to be able to utilize it. There's like a small handful of the filters and the stylizations that I use and I like the look of for post-photo editing in Clip Studio Paint as well. I also really like how easy it is to move things around. I like to kind of go in. Sometimes I will add multiple of the 3D models I have so I can pull in different items to make it feel a little bit more unique to the setting that I'm going into. I love going in, adjusting those colors so that it does feel a little bit more my background as opposed to just popping something in and taking a quick photo of it to use as a background. And I feel like everything that I've done within Snaptoon has been very logical. I don't feel like there's much of anything that I've been really confused about since I've been playing around with it. It's a lot of very simple tools, very straightforward. I'm sure there's more comprehensive things that I might be able to do, and I might just not have the knowledge because a lot of the documentation information for Snaptoon is in Korean. But I say I've gotten what I've wanted out of it so far. I definitely want to get to a point, like I mentioned, where I can do a little bit more overpainting of the backgrounds to make it fit in a little bit more, because right now it still very much does look like 3D models in the background, which I don't mind so much, but it will be nice when I can get to a point where I definitely have a stronger understanding of how to paint backgrounds. And so far I've really enjoyed using the program. I feel like adding it to my artwork flow has been very nice, and having that kind of accomplishment of looking at a piece and feeling like it's a bit more visually complete as opposed to before of just kind of someone floating on a white background has been really nice. But hopefully this helped you kind of get a sense around Snaptoon if it's something that you might be interested in using or utilizing for your own art projects. If you are planning to utilize 3D models, also just be aware of any end user licensing agreements on whatever site that you're using, especially if you're a team doing something, whether it's like a game development team and you want to utilize backgrounds there, because a lot of them can have specific terms on what you can and can't do and how often or how much you can actually utilize the 3D model if you are a bigger team as opposed to an individual. But aside from that, I hope this was helpful, and I will see y'all in the next one.